Okay, so I want to tell a little story about this thing that happened one time when I was in Iraq. With who else? The great Sergeant Paris. I'm not going to give any background on the guy because I've already told several stories about him, including my story, Leviskowitz. If you don't know him yet, check that story out. Okay, but one thing I will say about him was this was a guy who was really chill and laid back. The chillest NCOs you're gonna meet. He didn't like yell at soldiers. He didn't make you do push-ups. Write you up if you did something wrong. Yeah, this was not exactly a disciplinarian. Fuck no. Exact opposite, right? Yeah, it would take a lot to piss him off or make him write you up. But if anyone could pull it off, it was me, as you're about to hear. So we're in Iraq and we're staying at this place called Fob Shield, middle of Baghdad. And the only reason that they let me leave the wire, like go outside of the streets, was to pick up and drop off the unit's mail. Me and that guy Bennett, if you've heard that story, we get in the truck, go over to Union 3, this other fob in Baghdad, pick up the mail, bring it back the next day. And meanwhile, I was working in this place called the mayor's cell, which it's pretty hard to explain what exactly a mayor's cell does. I don't think a lot of soldiers can even really explain what they do. But they will assign certain soldiers to work over there, and really everyone wants to work at the mayor's cell because you don't do shit. And I especially did nothing because the NCO in charge, her name was Sergeant Matthews, and she basically just let me sit there and play on the internet all day. I had to clean the floor a little bit before we closed, but that was it. She basically did all the work. And so it's this one night, and I'm about to go on a mail mission. And I'm outside of my room, I'm getting ready, putting on my gear, and Sergeant Matthews walks up. And she's like, change of plans. You don't have to go out tonight. You can stay in. We can get someone else to cover the mail mission. And I think for a second, and then I go, well, Sergeant Matthews, I'll go on the mail mission if I could drive. And like I just said, I almost never got to leave the wire, only for the mail missions. When I did leave, I wasn't the driver. And I just wanted to drive in Baghdad. I just wanted to say that once in my life, I got to drive in Iraq, like in the streets of Baghdad. And then Matthews thinks for a second and goes, okay, I'll get back to you in a minute. Let me just ask somebody if you could drive. Comes back a few minutes later. Yeah, Sergeant said it's fine. You can drive if you want. I'm like, yes, that's awesome. So I put on all my gear and we go to the trucks. And there's this SUV, right? I thought I'd be driving like a Humvee or something, or an MRAP. Nah, it was like an SUV. Ford Explorer, or whatever the fuck. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So I get in the truck and I finally get to drive. And it's only like 20 minutes. It's, 11 o'clock at night. There's no one in the streets. We actually had the Iraqi police and army clearing a route for us. So it's not like we were going to get attacked. It wasn't shit. But just the thrill of being able to drive in Baghdad was enough for me. And again, say I did it. So we get to Union 3. And before we bed down for the night, I go to the MWR, where you could use the internet. They got like video games and shit. It's like a little entertainment center for soldiers. They have on most posts in Iraq. And I get on Facebook, and I'm all excited about it, right? So I start posting on my Facebook like, wow, I can't believe I drove. I can't believe I drove in Iraq. Wow, I drove in Baghdad. And then I said something like, wow, I'm like a combination between Rambo and Jeff Gordon. Like a Rambo NASCAR driver. And I was that guy that would post shit like that when you were deployed. But I was too dumb to like unfriend like my first sergeant and people in my chain of command. I think my first sergeant was actually one of my Facebook friends. And, like, they're not going to see that shit. But whatever. I didn't think it was a big deal. But apparently, my chain of command, between just loving to give Levy shit about everything and being all paranoid about OPSEC, it's like you're not supposed to give any details about any missions or talk about what fob you're staying at or whatever, because the enemy will find out and use it to attack you. It's fucking stupid, right? But, yeah, this really pissed them off. And I found out quickly when I get back to SHIELD that it rolled downhill all the way to Sergeant Paris. And for the first time in his career, he's pissed at a soldier. He's like, yeah, what you posting on Facebook, Naviskowitz? What you posting on Facebook, huh? You a NASCAR driver? You driving in Baghdad like a NASCAR driver? Saying what kind of vehicles we driving? You want the enemy to know that? Yeah, you a NASCAR? You can put your whole unit in danger? You can put the whole army in danger, guy? And he proceeds to, for probably the first and only time in his whole career, write me a counseling statement for doing this. And, of course, for a few days, I never heard the end of it. Hey, Levy, how's NASCAR? When are you going to join NASCAR, huh? I was like, oh, shut the fuck up. Leave me alone. But, yeah. So, that was my little story about, me getting to drive an SUV in Baghdad, an unarmored SUV, by the way. The sergeant in the passenger seat didn't tell me that. There was no armor on this thing at all. It was just like a regular car. And I'm like, holy shit, that had no armor on it? Now I really feel like a badass. But, yeah.